Hello, and thanks for joining me for today's webinar. Today's session is going to cover email management updates in CRM. Our product team has recently launched a series of updates to help with email management, so we're going to take a deep dive into those new features, but we're also going to spend a little bit of time looking at some of the core features in CRM, kind of geared towards the communication area. So what that means is, first off, we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at the basics, talking about why it's important to be sending emails out through CRM, what the benefits are of sending emails out through a CRM, and then we're going to walk through some of the kind of lesser known or less used features that I think can be very beneficial to many of you out there. Then we're going to spend a few minutes looking at the newer features, the email bounce log and our email job queue, and we'll talk a little bit about our integrations near the end of today's session. So first off, kind of considering and thinking about why should we be sending emails through CRM. While many of us are using Outlook or something similar to send our emails and to receive our emails, which is a very useful tool, it's important to understand that first off, CRM is capable of sending emails out, and it also has some benefits to it. We can automatically track our emails in CRM. It's all about getting the important information, the interactions that we've had with our clients, that we're getting those in CRM so our coworkers can be aware of the conversations that we've had with our clients, so that we can have easy access to those conversations. And as our companies grow and have turnover, it's important to have all that information in a concise place with easy access. And that's what CRM's all about, is keeping track of and managing the relationships that we have with our clients. So having all those communications in one point goes a long way. And of course, we have the Outlook integration and Gmail integrations that can assist you in pushing that information back into CRM from another source. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But there are still some additional benefits. So even if we are thinking about the fact that we have automatic tracking, we can sync emails back through Outlook. But in CRM, we can also set up a series of templates that can greatly help you with your branding and can really help with anti-spam. What we've found in doing research is our industry, unfortunately, we're really good at spamming people. We don't really follow a lot of the kind of standard rules as far as email marketing goes. So one great benefit is to have standard templates set up in CRM that have been tested. We know they work. They've been reviewed, so we know that they're meeting kind of spam requirements. They aren't too big. They're using the correct amount of content and the correct content, correct signature lines, those types of things. So templates, they save a ton of time. If we have messages that we send out throughout the year, having one message that we can just repeatedly grab and send out, kind of update on the fly. So templates, big part of it. Again, saving time, helping with your brand identity, helping to reduce spam. So again, great benefits to using CRM to send out our communications. They track automatically, and then we can use all the great features like we're going to see in just a couple of minutes. So I want to kind of walk through the communication form and make sure that we all understand the features that are available, because CRM is really made to make life easier. So we're going to take a look at some features when we're sending them out. Many of you might not realize that on the account form, when we're going to send out emails to people who work at a specific business, that we can refine our list in a pretty easy way. So in just a couple of minutes, we're going to walk through these features live. We also, over the past year, added in the ability to CC or to blind copy staff and to blind copy additional emails. And then I want to spend a few minutes just making sure we're all pretty clear on what the WYSIWYG editor is capable of doing. You're going to see all the same tools that you see in Outlook or in Gmail or Apple Mail or in Word or anything else here in CRM. So we can format our emails. You can build them in HTML. But I'm going to look at a couple of the features that are some kind of, again, slip a little bit through the cracks. So first off, there are 3 different ways that we can send emails out through CRM. First off is we may want to send just a one-off email. So sometimes we just need to, and you most often need to send out an email to just one specific person. And now the features that we're going to be taking a look at in the live session are all the same in all of the different user groups. So I'm not going to take the time to jump into each different department to complete these actions, but it's important to note that they work in just the exact same way. What I mean by that is, for example, if I want to email an individual, one person, I can just find their contact record a few different ways, either using the quick search or the recently viewed to jump directly to them like I just did there. I could start on the account level, which is sometimes a good idea, so I'm making sure that I'm getting the right Chris George. There might be a bunch of it in my database. But if I come to the account, to the contacts tab, I see the contact where I can click to go to that same detail record. But I can also just click on the email address anytime I see it. So if I want to send a one-off email, I can click on the email address from the account. I can click on the email address from the contact record. Last and not least, I can come below the contact record to the contacts communications tab and hit new communication. Just takes you a couple extra clicks there. So my preferred way is just to, as soon as I see that email address, click on it. And again, up top, we're seeing who we're going to be sending the email to with their preferred method of contact highlighted here. So again, this is going to be set to email if this person has an email address, has his email checkbox selected, and we're going to talk more about this guy in just a little bit. And then we see preferred method of contact there. So it can highlight and go to their preferred method if they would rather receive the message via print. So again, send off one-off email. I click on the contact. The first thing I see is who it's going to and whether or not it's going to be emailed or printed. Can add in additional emails who will be blind copied. We can pull in staff who will be blind copied. And again, it's important to note that anytime we're including additional emails here, those folks are all blind copied, so they look like they're the only person on that communication. We get into our message area. It's showing here who the email is coming from, the subject line. I'll talk a little bit more about the WYSIWYG editor. But this is the first instance where we see some of our templates. And what we're seeing in this dropdown are what are considered merge templates. And what that means is, like we see here, it can pull in content dynamically from the record that I'm working on. So these are great when we are sending one-off emails. You might be more familiar with these, those of you who work in the sales department, as those templates that you're pulling when you're sending your lead information to your hotels and your service requests. Because again, they're dynamically pulling information from the record that I'm currently working on or underneath. Now, these aren't great for sending out emails en masse. They won't say Dear Bob, Dear Chris, Dear Joe. They are great for sending off one-off emails with standard content, standard design that again can pull information in from the record I'm working on. The other style of templates that are going to be used more often when we're sending out, they can be used more often when we're sending out things en masse. They are just a little bit more generic. Are these guys that are hidden inside of the WYSIWYG editor as our editor templates. These can be just standard stationery that we drop right in and update standard letters, but they aren't dynamically pulling in content. So these guys pull content in, they're dynamic, they pull information in from the record that I'm currently working on right into the email. I can always update them. Editor templates are non-dynamic, they pull standard content that I can update, but again, great for stationery, and I'll talk a little bit more about those in just a little bit. But some additional features that live inside of the WYSIWYG editor here, I want to point this guy out. This is a load feature, so if I'm working, creating this great email, and I get called away, or I need to run home or something like that, before I send it, I can save it. So I click on the store button, I give it a little name here, I don't know what number test I'm on, and once it's saved, I can then leave, come back tomorrow, try to pick up right where I left off, and all I need to do is simply load that saved content. And I keep on working and we go from there. We add in our attachments, and I'll talk more about the signature template in just a little bit here, but it's important to note that the system can drop standard or signature lines in. You can have different signature templates set up for the different departments within your organization. And that's something we're going to review here today, because what I'd like to see happen is if we've reviewed your signature templates, they look good and they're active, then we should default this to yes. Your staff shouldn't have to remember to include their signature or to click it over every single time they send an email. We start your teams off with that defaulted to no until you've reviewed and given us the thumbs up on your signature templates. Then we go ahead and set that to yes. So we'll see how we review those, and once you've completed that review, let us know so we can set that guy. So the benefits, again, coming back to where we started, templates. It's all about brand identity. So having these different templates loaded up that keep a consistent message, a consistent look and a feel is going to go a very, very long way. Having your standard signature lines, again, those things, templates and signatures, not only help with brand identity, but can greatly help you get through spam, make things more standardized. It also, once I hit send here and I email this Chris George guy, I forgot the subject line, so we'll throw one in there. It's going to leave a record of that email underneath the recipient's communications record. So now in CRM, we have a record of every email we've ever sent to this person, who sent it, subject line, etc. I can click the details to actually view the email and to resend it. So we're getting all those benefits, storing it, getting our brand nice and sound, and we're saving time by using standard communication templates. But I can also send emails to more than one person at the same business. Maybe I need to reach out to the sales staff over here at this specific hotel. Well, if I want to communicate with more than one person at the same company, I come under the Accounts Communications tab, New Communication. We're going to see a lot of the same things, but more going on up here up top. When I click the New Communication button from the account level, it's basically pulling in every contact or point of communication at that company. Up top, it pulls in the account's email address. So you got to watch out for that, because we rarely send emails to the account's email address. If I don't want to include them, I just uncheck them. Now I'm seeing every person who works for this company. If I don't want to send an email over here to Shannon, I just uncheck them. So anybody with a checkbox is going to get the communication, or if a checkbox under print, one version of this email, in this case, will come out of my printer for me to stick in the mail and send to Shannon. I can clear all the checkboxes, add them all back in, whatever makes it a little bit easier to select the things that you need. But then there's this great feature here now where I can refine this list to just see a specific list of contacts based on their tag. So we're seeing contact tags here. And again, if I want to refine this, I can just grab a tag and refine that list based off of any of those tags. I got a bad list going here. But then you can always switch right back to all the contacts. So you can just check off those who should be included, or you can use the selected tag dropdown to refine the list of contacts who work for this specific business based on their tag. And again, we've got our templates. Now we're sending here to multiple people. So we're going to use our standard WYSIWYG editor. Again, include our signature, or we should get that defaulted to yes. Standard communications and standard templates. So again, these guys, just to talk on them just for one more second, the editor templates, these are great, again, to get that standard brand out there. I can't stress how important it is that we are sending things out that look similar. They also, again, we want to save you time. When we have standard letters that we send out, a thank you letter, for example, a welcome to the neighborhood new letter for those new businesses that are opening. Thanks for joining. Thanks for meeting me at a trade show. I'm going to be at a trade show and love to meet with you if you have the time. Having that to just drop right in, make a couple of updates before you send it out the door, again, saves you a lot of time, saves and keeps your brand out there. And again, that way, your partners, for example, are getting a consistent message, a consistent feel from everyone on your team. These emails might look a little different and read a little bit different, but again, let the system do 90% of the work. Saves you time, saves you effort, and keeps the brand. So one-off emails to more than one person at the same business. Then last and not least, of course, we can use our advanced search module to build a list of people who have something in common to communicate with those groups in mass. So I can pull in a list of hotel general managers, downtown hotel managers. From a meeting sales perspective, a list of clients who are in the city of Phoenix because I'm going to attend a trade show there. So we build the list using the advanced search module. Then we can send emails out en masse, including those nice editor templates. So again, our standard letters or our standard stationery that we can just drop right in, make some updates, and send. And again, that will leave a record of that email underneath the corresponding person's communications record. You also have the mobile version of CRM. Mobile version of CRM gives you quick and easy access to your contacts and a quick and easy way to send emails out on the fly. So we've got full documentation and webinars on the mobile version of CRM, but in a nutshell, I can, in the same exact way, find my contact, and if I want to send them an email, I just click on the envelope. It's going to open my mail client on my phone or mobile device with Robin in this case as the to, me as the from. And when I send an email from mobile, it is going to automatically find and track that underneath the corresponding person's record. So after I send the email through mobile, and if I came back and found Robin's record in CRM, this time we would find that email underneath the Trace tab, where we would see a list of the emails that were sent to this person, whether it be from CRM in the Communications tab or from mobile. We'll also talk about at the end of our demonstration here today the fact that our integrations with Outlook and Gmail, when I send or receive an email in Outlook or Gmail, I can sync it and it comes right back to the Traces tab as a completed trace. So our preferred and our recommended method is to use CRM to send emails out because of the benefits we've discussed. That includes mobile, automatically tracks those back. But then as we receive our communications back from our clients, those will go into Outlook or Gmail, and that's really what that was designed for, is then to sync those inbound emails back into CRM, which would then add that communication underneath the corresponding person's trace tab as a completed trace. And if you're using one of those integrations, we should make sure that the communication or the trace type that comes back when we're syncing from Outlook or Gmail does have a trace type and indicates whether it was an email you've sent or an email you've received. If you're not seeing trace types that are coming in when you're syncing those emails from Outlook or Gmail, you got to look at your settings, and again, additional documentation available in the knowledge base on those features. All right. So again, we saw some of these new tools, the ability, or these great tools that'll help with your communications, the ability to refine the lists based on account type or as one-offs, the ability to blind copy staff and additional email addresses, standard formatting tools in the WYSIWYG editor, including the templates, the editor templates, and the ability to save our drafts. And so, we talked a lot about templates throughout there. So we saw really 3 different types of templates that I want to quickly review in a little more detail, and then show you a little bit of how those work in the back end, how your system administrators can set those up. So we saw the 3 different types. We saw those merge templates, the dynamic templates that can pull content in to the email off of the record that I'm currently working on. We saw the editor templates that are great for sending emails out in groups or in mass. They could be standard stationery or standard letters. And then we also saw the signature templates that we'll take just a quick look at. Again, we want to make sure those have at least been reviewed so we can default the signatures to be included so your team doesn't have to remember to add that feature in. So again, these save a lot of time. These help with your brand identity. These can also greatly help with spam, and we're going to talk a lot about that here in just a little bit, because we now are having the bad email addresses, or when people call us out as spammers, or when our emails are getting stuck in spam filters, we have the potential of losing the ability to communicate with them. So we'll talk just a little bit more about that. But first, signature templates. So your signature line is, very important. While we're going to focus on the others, signature lines, got to have them. Every email should have them. As a person who lives on the road, one of my pet peeves is searching through 100 emails to try to find one that includes the person's signature line. I might need to give them a quick call or something like that. So we should set them up in the admin, and we're going to walk through that process. And it's important to note that we can have multiple signature lines set up, so that way each department could have a slightly different look, maybe different color scheme, Maybe we want the logos to link out to different sections of the website. So maybe, for example, your sales staff, when someone clicks on the logo in the signature, we want those people to be taken to the meetings section of your website. Where those of us on the membership side, or those people who work in the membership or partnership department, they might want their logo to link out to a membership or partnership sign-up form or something like that. So again, once we get all these guys nice and set, we're then going to come back in, you're going to reach out to us, and we're going to default the signatures to be included in all the communications. So the next few things, these are admin privileges. So to manage our signatures, we come under the admin section under users. Up top, we see the manage signatures feature. We first create the signatures, we then apply them to the users. So first we review, and if it looks good, then it looks good. So we see a quick preview of that signature template, and we see in here percent something percent. That's going to come into play here and in just a few minutes when we talk more about those merge templates. So let's just edit this guy. So we can see here, we dropped in a nice logo. We're using our standard WYSIWYG editor, just like we use throughout the system to create the formatting, make certain things bold, italicized, etc. And in here, we're seeing standard language, human being words like P in parentheses, and then percent something percent. So at any point, if I want to add something in here, like type in an address for the company that will always display, then we just type right in there, and then that's always going to show up. I can then again format this. So the words, or the words typed in, the language typed in, is always going to display. If I want something to dynamically pull in from the user's record, again, that's these guys, dynamic content, where it's going to dynamically pull in each person's full name in bold right there. Then it's going to say the word Simple View Inc. dash, and it's going to dynamically pull title in there. So we can pull in more stuff if we want to. We just place the cursor where we want to pull something in, and we click the little Simple View field picker. And what we see on here is every field that we can pull in. This is every field we're going to see in just a few minutes that lives on the user's record. So if I wanted to pull in, for some reason, their email address, and I wanted to pull in the website URL, whatever I clicked, website URL, then we see that it's dynamically throwing percent something percent. So if I was to save it like this, it will, in addition to pulling in their name and phone number and cell phone number right next to the word P and the M, it's going to pull in their title, their email address, the image from their user record, and the website URL. So you can save one. It's a good idea to save the first one. Then if you want a slight variation off of that template for another department, just clone it, give it a new name. For the next department, this might be the tour version. Great, and then make your changes. Again, maybe this should link somewhere different. So I'm going to add in a different address and save it. So then the person who has been assigned the tour signature template will get exactly what we see there. So once the templates have been created, we come back underneath the users. We come underneath any user, and here we select the template we might want to pull in. And if, for example, here we're seeing nothing's pulling in right there, that was meant to pull in the mobile phone. Well, it's because Bill doesn't have a mobile phone. And if we added one in here and then we save it, so we get the good formatting here. Well, if I save it, and then when we come back and we look at Bill again, now it's going to pull in, and we'll just click to preview his record. So we will see the number there. So signature templates, once you've set them up, once you've applied the correct template to each user, let your analyst know, because again, we would like this to default to yes. Once we know it's correct, then we'll default that to yes. But now let's look at the other templates. I'm going to jump over to sales, because the most commonly used merge templates are those that we're using when we're sending our leads to our hotels. So we build a lead, And when we go to send it, we're usually pulling in a different template that dynamically pulls content in from, again, the record I'm working on, and in this case, it's pulling in lead content. So if we want to add more or edit those existing templates, this is something we should review. The templates we have been using in the past, we should get our eyeballs on them from time to time, and to consider using new ones. But pretty easy to access my lead sales templates. We just come under the templates area, under the lead section, and I can make an update to any template. And I would say, again, review these, because I think there's always an opportunity to make these more descriptive. You know, almost every time I pull up a destination's templates, I'm seeing some content on there that shouldn't be because you've rebranded or you've changed your processes. I also usually see them like this without a lot of descriptors. So you can always come in and update the template to add in more content, to dynamically pull more information. So maybe right here, I wanted to pull in the market segment from this lead. So I type in the words that should always be there, place the cursor where I want the content to come or to be added in. I click the field picker, where now, since this is a lead template, I'm seeing every field that lives on the lead page. And we can just come down through here alphabetically, and I clicked market segment, and we see it dynamically dropped in market segment. Now, just a little tip, you don't want to just try typing this, because even though you might get it right, as you'll see in some of the code that's in these guys, they do get a little bit funky. So use the field picker. Then use the WYSIWYG editor to build your standard templates. Now, the only other thing I would say is, if you're gonna make some serious updates to one, here's just a good idea. Save the original. You know, if I get halfway through building or editing one and I wreck it, then I don't have the original. So if I was gonna create or massively update my definite lead template, I would start this way. I'd edit the original. I would then hit the HTML button to copy all this stuff. Now, you know, you guys who know me know I'm not a coder, but I cheat. So I copy the HTML and I close the first one. Now I'm going to create a second version and call this one like the second version. Click the HTML button and then paste in all that HTML from the previous. Now I edit it, now I wreck it and destroy it or make it better, whatever I really want to do. And when I save it, now I have that second version to review and to test. Once this one's good, then I come back in and get rid of the old one. So hopefully save you a little bit of time. Last and not least, those great editor templates. Again, editor templates, my favorite way to use an editor template is from a sales standpoint to have some that are set up to kind of preemptively reach out to clients that I might want to visit with. Maybe I'm going to a trade show in this zip code or within 100 miles of downtown Tucson, and I want to email the clients who live out there or who are located out there to let them know I'm going to be in the area. Well, I do that throughout the year, so why not have a standard pre-built template that includes that information? Hey, I'm going to be in your area soon. Would love to meet with you if you have the time. Saves me time to just drop that right in there. Or again, use my standard stationery. So standard letters, standard stationery. And those are managed in kind of a strange spot. Under admin, under drop downs, we find our editor templates. And what's great about editor templates is they're easy. When we hit add new template, you're going to see the same WYSIWYG editor we see when we're sending an email on the fly. So again, if it's a letter I use more than once throughout the year, like a thank you letter, nice meeting you letter, create it once in the admin, then reuse it and reuse it and reuse it. If you're going to create it once, you might as well be able to reuse it over and over and over again. So as we're seeing that these features are hidden in the admin area, it's important to notice also that you can set up individuals with access to specific admin tools without granting them system-wide admin access. So if you have someone on your marketing team that's comfortable building these types of things, you can give them access to that single tool without giving them access to the others. Okay. So once you've got the signatures, you're going to let us know, review your templates, think about, consider adding in some templates, because again, it all goes back to the items we discussed early on. Saving time, brand identity, keeping a record of those communications in CRM. But now we're going to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of it all. And this has been a big topic of conversation here at SimpleView over the past few months, is the addition of our email bounce log and the kind of connection with emails now being sent through Dyn servers. So first, a little bit about this email bounce report. So this is a report that was added into your system that was built to show email addresses that have bounced from a recent mailing from any of the user groups. So as your team is sending emails out through CRM and those email addresses are becoming a hard bounce, meaning the email address is bad, it's invalid, it no longer exists, then it's automatically going to remove the send email checkbox from that contact in CRM, preventing you from sending them emails in the future. That person's email address that gets added to this report, giving your staff the opportunity to review to understand why an email might have bounced, to potentially reach out to that person to see if their email address has changed or if something needs to be updated. And then you can then reach out to SimpleView to have those emails reinstated. So as we're sending out emails, they can bounce for a lot of different reasons. Reasons for bouncing can include bad content. I keep mentioning spam, but if we have emails that aren't set up according or properly using kind of standard spam practices or email practices, they can get caught in spam filters. People can call you out as a spammer because they aren't familiar with who's sending the communication or the subject line, those types of things. But again, if an email address no longer exists, their email mailbox is full, different reasons, they can always bounce, and we will then unsubscribe that person, add it to this report so you can review, and you can let us know how to manage that or what that next step may be. So first off, this is something that has greatly improved our deliverability. It's just the undelivers and these bad email addresses are hopefully now becoming more obvious to you. What has happened historically is people are sending emails out through CRM. Those people are then complaining, or those emails are coming back as bad email addresses, and then our staff was just trying to send an email to that person again and again and again. Well, if we know that email address is bad and we keep trying to send it, that's going to score us pretty poorly in our spam filters and some of those types of things. So, deliverability has gone up, but it's become a whole lot more obvious when things aren't going the way we want them to go. So let's take a quick look at that report. I come into any user group, and down here at the bottom, we find our email bounce log. So again, the email bounce log is showing every email that is bounced during a time frame. It's showing our hard bounces and what are called soft bounces. And in just one second, I'm going to point you guys to a document with a whole lot of information. Understanding that this is getting a little bit technical. We're not all IT people. Of course, there are probably IT people that we might need to direct this information to. Some of you might be on the call and know this better than I do. But also understand, for those of us who don't have an IT staff, who aren't really familiar, I'm going to really suggest a few times here that you lean on SimpleView. Our IT staff would love to take over some of the management of the back end of what's called your DNS, or in other words, some of the kind of email things that need to get updated. And I'll talk more about that in just one second. But again, I pull in a list of the folks that have bounced. I can come underneath any user to click on this guy to see who it was. I can come to the detail of their record, and what I'm going to see here, for example, with this Melanie person, who, if I take a step back here, was a hard bounce. Her email address does not exist. So what happened is it came back underneath Melanie's record and it unchecked her send email checkbox. So it's going to prevent us from trying to send an email to Melanie again. If you then reach out to her and find out that her email address changed, sometimes there's a space in here that just needs to be removed or was entered in incorrectly. Well, your team can click it again, but you're going to need to report this to SimpleView and to your CRM analyst. So we use the report to find somebody who's bounced, and you think that doesn't make sense. I just talked to her. Well, we check the record. We maybe call her up. We get the new information and we enter it in and reset it. Then we provide SimpleView with this person's contact ID for it to be reinstated. If your sales staff simply comes in here, or your team or whoever, whichever department, just checks it back in and updates the email address and tries to send them an email, it's not going out. We've got a block in there in place to make sure. What was happening in the first couple days when we launched this is people were just getting it unchecked and checking it back. Well, this person unsubscribed or was removed for a reason, and if we're just continuing to send to that potentially bad email address, again, we're kind of hurting the spam compliance rules, and it can hurt our credibility. So again, we click on the person's address or email address to see the record of it. But I can also click View Detail here to get a big log of why this person might have bounced. And again, a lot of information going on there. If we're IT guy on the IT team, again, we might understand this. But inside of this message, it's given us a lot of intelligence. And what we've done is we've created this document that's available in the knowledge base that's walking you through everything we're talking about here today, including the bounce report. It's giving you on some information first off on what is a soft, what is a hard bounce. Now, it's important to note that a soft can become a hard bounce. But a hard bounce, that's when we uncheck it. We don't uncheck the email or that send to box until it's become a hard bounce, which means, again, it's wrong, it's bad, it's an invalid email address, it's a bad email address, the email address no longer exists, it's a hard bounce. A soft bounce is something that could be potentially temporary. Their email addresses or their email box is temporarily down, it's temporarily full, or something like that. The system will try to send an email to what was a soft bounce 3 separate times. And if that email bounces softly 3 times, it then becomes a hard bounce and it unchecks that box. And we'll see the history of that. But then again, there's a whole lot of stuff going on in the communication record or in this big box that we're seeing here that helps point us in the direction. And very simply, again, if we aren't comfortable with this, then you're going to give SimpleView this contact ID and say, why did it bounce? And I'll follow up. We can translate this to English for you and tell you, hey, well, this person's email address no longer exists. You can call them up and see if their email address changed. Or we can use this document here, which throughout the language, it has these diagnostic codes telling you why the email bounced, so you can follow up directly. We'll also see in here these bounce codes in this document, which is going to give you more detailed information. So you could read this, understand why this email bounced, adjust that record accordingly, make that person inactive if they no longer work at their position, correct their email address and notify SimpleView to reinstate it. Or you could just send this over to us and say, hey, contact ID 1234, or look at these specific records. We can translate that and give it back to you. But again, you should see most of that information in this very important message here. A lot of stuff going on, getting pretty technical. So again, the big thing here is to notice that deliverability is coming up. We're just giving you the tools to manage it. And this is helping our spam reputation moving forward, which is just going to help deliverability go up and up and up. So early on, this may be an issue, but it's kind of self-correcting itself by removing those bad email addresses so we don't keep sending to them again and keep getting ding, 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 and potentially going in the wrong direction. So the email bounce log should be reviewed from time to time. It can be updated, or we can filter by the bounce type, hard or soft. We can look for a specific email address. And again, if you have questions on this, reach out to your CRM analyst. Some of us have gone through this process and had our IT staff involved. Some of us have not. But the number one reason we're seeing when it comes to emails getting caught up in there or not being delivered, being bounced and being added to that list, again, all comes back to spam. So be sure we're following standard best practices when it comes to email. And, again, lots of documentation out there on a subject like that. There's some of that in our knowledge base. But we should be watching out for the content and making sure that we're building our emails that are being sent accordingly, and not using trigger words that got caught in spam and those types of things. And since this update, deliverability again has gone really through the roof. We did a couple of quick reviews before this session, and we're running at a 91 to 96% deliverability rate on each of our servers, which is very, very good. But that doesn't mean it's perfect, and it doesn't mean that we don't have more work to do. So while we're kind of pushing you in the right direction, we got to make sure your staff is using the tools accordingly. Last time I'll say it, but templates help with that, saving time and making sure our messages are consistent and clean. But back in May, we had also asked for your IT teams to make an update to what's called the SPF record and to add a new URL to your email waitlist. And again, kind of getting a little bit technical here. And while many of you out there, your staffs did make this update, which helped with deliverability, some of you have not. So if you are having issues, you're hearing from partners that they are not receiving the email communications, it's important that we're having this conversation with their CRM analyst. And again, if you have an IT staff, we have documentation that we can provide that you can give over to them. We'd be more than happy to get on a call to make sure that your tools and your, again, SPF record is set up correctly. But if you don't have an IT team, if you aren't comfortable, if your IT team needs some help, again, that's okay. That's why we're here. We're here to help you guys. So if you would like, please reach out to your analyst, and we can actually manage all this stuff for you. And in a lot of cases, we would like to help with that. Again, it's something we can do. It's something we have the knowledge to do. So please reach out to your analyst if this is, again, a little bit out of our realm, which is totally understandable. The other new feature is the email job queue. Some of you guys may have seen this, but not quite sure what's going on. So let's jump in and take a quick look. When we are sending an email to a group of people en masse, I think I've got a list prepped for this. When we're sending emails out in groups, whether it be through the advanced search module or even through one of our different modules like our event registration module, when we're sending out big emails to big giant lists of people, it might take some time. If we're sending emails out to big groups of people and they all have attachments and there's a lot of content in them, it can take some time. Now, sending to 4 or 5 people, not going to take, it's going to happen pretty much instantly. But when we're sending out, again, to bigger groups of people and we're sending out more content, it might take up to 10 minutes. If we're sending 1,000 emails out, this can take a little bit of time just to run through the queue. So we just want you to now know when the queue is complete or when it's been wiped, or in other words, when the job is completed. So now when we go to send out an email en masse, using our standard tools, grabbing a nice template, signature line, and attachments. Well, when we send it, we now see this message that says a mass email is being sent. A job has been created to process this, and you will be notified once it's complete. Now, mine's going to happen really quick because I'm just emailing to a few people here. But you may have seen this blue bar and not known why. That's what it is. It's just letting you know, hey, a mass email job has been completed. You can just click the X to remove that notification. You can click view all to get the statistics to show you exactly the time and the date that communication had been sent. Wipe it clean, see you later. Doesn't come back again until we send another email out en masse. We get the notification that it's being added to the queue. Then it gets sent. So if 3 or 4 people are sending emails out at the same time, it's all going to get queued up in the order in which you click the send button. And then again, you'll be able to check out the jobs or the recent jobs to see when that job was completed. So again, lots of review on the email bounce log, email job queue, really just a notification letting you know once something has been completed. And while we were in there with our advanced search, we also saw we have Macy that you have the ability to send a newsletter out through CRM. So we do offer integrated newsletter tools that give you additional tracking, much more detailed tracking as far as open rate, click-through rate, those types of things. They can also help with deliverability when sending larger sets of content. So our newsletters are usually a little bit more data heavy. They're usually going out to lists that aren't as trusted. We're sending to groups of consumers and not to folks like meeting sales clients and tour operators and partners who may have been or might be familiar with receiving communications from you in the past. So we offer these integrations tools because of really those factors: better deliverability, and not better, I should say, better deliverability when sending data heavy emails. And you can send larger emails. And again, the tracking, getting that open rate, that click-through rate, and all of those types of things. What's great about our integration, particularly with Distribuon, is you build your lists of people that you want to send newsletters to in CRM. Then you're basically sending the e-newsletter out through Distribuon's tool set, but through an interface in CRM to streamline those things. Then as people unsubscribe and as their email addresses go bad and those types of things, it does come back into SimpleView and remove the checkbox, or in other words, remove those people from future communications. So lots of good reasons to use it. But we've also made some recent updates with Distribuon that folks should be just a little bit aware of. And again, these are hidden in a different place, so I want to point those out really quick. If we come into our marketing group, and we do have the Distribuon integration, when we come under Distribuon, we see these integration settings. Few just little things to note here, but we can, for example, make sure that we are syncing those unsubscribes. So when people unsubscribe, is that data coming back into SimpleView? Make sure we got that set up. Include hard bounces. So again, if they're hard bounces, are those considered unsubscribes? The answer is usually yes. But this is the one I really wanted to point out, is that you can exclude user groups from unsubscribes. So what's been happening a lot is people send and include members in their newsletter. And sometimes a member or a partner then unsubscribes from the newsletter, which again is unchecking their send to checkbox, removing them from future communications. Well, that tends to be a problem. If the director of sales at the Hilton down the street unsubscribes from the newsletter, thus unsubscribing them from all communications from your company, they would no longer be getting they would no longer be getting sales lead updates or notifications, invites to meetings, those types of things. So we can check that off. So if we send newsletters through Distribuon to people who reside in our member partner user group, it removes the ability for them to globally unsubscribe. So a really nice feature, again, to keep things straight. That way that director of sales can't just take himself accidentally off of every list. Again, that's only through our Distribuon settings. And last and not least, I did mention these early on. I'm not going to go through a full demonstration because, again, training documentation and additional webinars on the subjects. But we do offer integrations with two different email providers, Outlook and Gmail. Again, the general idea is we send our emails out through CRM because of all the great benefits that we've learned here today. But then when we receive an email back from a client, we may want to sync that back into CRM. So again, all of the emails, all of the correspondence lives in CRM, password protected and stored forever for everyone, and again, other teammates to have access to. So both integrations, they do need to be set up on your end, and basically in those devices, in Gmail or in Outlook, you find an email, you click the sync button, pulls up one of these two screens for you to confirm either in Outlook who in SimpleView you should send that record to. In Gmail, it looks a little bit different. You simply check that off and it copies that email, whether you've sent or received it in Outlook or Gmail, and it copies that directly into SimpleView CRM under the corresponding person and underneath their trace area as a completed trace. These are something to consider for your team for one reason, and the big reason is if we don't have one of these integrations, it just takes time. Technically, our staff should be taking those inbound emails and copying them out of Outlook and pasting them into CRM. And CRM is where all that data should live, all the intelligence. So technically, in a perfect world, we're taking those emails and we're putting them in CRM, but that takes time. It's an extra step that a lot don't do, and then we lose track of that correspondence. So having one of the integrations streamlines that quite a bit, and then again make sure that the intelligence is getting in CRM, where it needs to be. So again, there was a lot going on in this one here today. So please reach out to your CRM analyst if you have any questions as far as email deliverability goes. If you are experiencing issues with email deliverability, it's really important we're reaching out to your team here at SimpleView. And then again, we can take over. Let our IT staff help yours, or let us in some ways kind of take over those IT needs. Thanks for your time.